What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. We're getting a small gap up in your NQ, in your cost beat, in the after hours here, which is slowly fading off. I'm going to go over that real quick. But first, going into this new week, right? We got a full week again after a short week last week, right? We got FOMC minutes, I think, on Wednesday, which not really a big focus for me. Uh, Not really any earnings this week. Um, We'll have to see. I think going into tomorrow, especially from scanning, I will start off and say I'm seeing absolutely nothing, right? I mean, there's really barely anything, right? My scans are super boring. Just tracking relative strength from last week, not anything too interesting. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm seeing a lot of biotech and pharmaceutical names showing up on my scans, and the way I feel like going into tomorrow is being extra patient, really just not wanting to do anything at all tomorrow and just monitor stuff, track relative strength, and even if I see something that maybe looks okay, just avoiding it for tomorrow and just kind of sitting on my hands and just acting, and just watching the way some of these things act, right? But nothing there I really personally want to trade going into tomorrow, right? Like I said, you're in a small little gap up from yesterday or from Thursday's close right now in the after hours, which is slowly fading off. And if you look at like the EWY, which I'll have to go to the boats, EWY here, right? You get a nice gap up into the 20-day, and we're rejecting it in a pretty big way right now. So interesting, to say the least, right? You look at the Kospi. It doesn't matter which one I bring up. You had a nice day on Friday from that like open, right? Even if you look at SK Hynix, Samsung, right? You had the super nasty day on Thursday, and then an absolute just monster shakeout on Friday, and we ride right back through the 50. So we're back at it right now after a gap up tonight. So we'll see if we can hold that. But you get a nice gap up, and these things are already fading off. Super interesting, right? You look at the ES, maybe same thing. Not as bad though. But overall, like the structure looks awesome on an ES. The structure looks awesome on an NQ. I don't want to see us break Thursday's lows. I'd like to hold this inside day, hold above the 50. I don't want to crack the 50. That would be super ugly. You had and if I bring up like breath here, right? You had breath, and I talked about this on Wednesday night, slowly deteriorating over the last 3 days, 3 to 4 days, right? It was slowly getting worse and worse, less setups, less stuff working, no traction on newer stuff. You look at Pradeep's as well, super bright, but 375 stocks. But you could just see like it had just been growing and growing over the last couple sessions. So that was super interesting, right? I look at market pulse, you had more stocks down than you had up. So overall, not good. Like I said though, that was something that I was just constantly paying attention to, as well as the most important thing, no traction. So my main goal for tomorrow is really just being super patient and really not doing anything, tracking names that are still above their 50, still above their 20. The stuff that showed the highest relative strength from last week is pretty much my focus list, right? Not my ready list, right? My ready list is really just stuff I'm just going to keep an eye on, but my focus list is there's a lot of stuff, right? Like I can even throw up, like it's not on the list, hood looks awesome. It's been showing some nice relative strength. It's finally back above the 200. Absolutely no setup for me. Maybe to watch on a pullback to the 200 day or to this little gap possible, but there's just no setup for me on a name like this. But these are definitely names I want to keep an eye on. Reddit is another one where it's like, okay, super nice move back to 200. This one is on the list because you get a nice tight day, breaking out this little mini range you built below the 200. But so I'll continue to keep an eye on this for sure. But I would like to see this name continue to build out a little bit more. Could have gotten it off the 200 day, but either way, nice inside day. It is what it is. Looks fine. Right, your DRAM got absolutely destroyed on Thursday and on Wednesday. You look at SanDisk, got hit pretty hard, which I did throw this one on the list. You're coming into a support gap. You're coming into the 50-day. You saw the Kospi bounce in a big way. So maybe it could copy what that did, I guess, and bounce to this area. But I still think, like, yes, the DRAM got destroyed, and it does not look good. And a lot of volume came in on this move down. But you're coming into the 50. You still have a shot to build a higher low here. And, I mean, it's the same thing for the SMH, right? Got hit pretty hard on that Thursday, but you're right at the 50. You still have a shot to build a higher low off of, the last higher low we built. So you're breaking the short-term higher low from over here and breaking down. So not my favorite, but still have a chance here to build a higher low. I did cut Intel on Thursday. I did take a trim though, thankfully, a third. And I think I talked about this last week. I took a third off on Tuesday. Into the new all-time high, and then unfortunately I had to cut the rest of it on Thursday for just a small win. Is what it is. I had a super nice spot on this name, and I thought that was going to be it, but it wasn't. So it is what it is. SanDisk is another one that I had to get rid of. I bought it down here off the 20-day, so I had been holding it that whole time, and you know, the loss of the 20 and it being down so much, I had to cut it. I didn't want it to go red, so that was pretty much how I felt with a lot of stuff. NDIS is also making the list because it hasn't lost the 50. It's been a big leading name. If you look at anything else in the WGMI, which this thing has got hammered. Absolutely none of these names are going to be on my list. They look horrible. Like Hut doesn't look horrible to the point where it can rally back through the 50 / this prior low after this nasty day, right? You get the undercut, can we get the rally? Who knows? But either way, this group looks disgusting. I'm not even going to go over it, right? But NBIS out of all of them, still above the 50, been a big leader, has a shot to build a higher low. So I will watch for, and if I know some people might have gotten this, maybe just as it started to turn up from losing the 50. So maybe a good spot. I think it's gapping up a little bit in the after hours. Interesting. But I will watch like a move back through the support gap or an inside day tomorrow. Just a hold of the 50 would be super interesting. I think this spot could be interesting for a higher low. We'll have to see. But a lot of leaders lost their 50 days. I talked about the memory stocks that were super weak, right? You look at WDC, right? Super weak from Thursday, but I wouldn't be shorting these ones right into their 50s. This is where the higher lows can come in. And definitely not something I want to do. STX similar, where you're right at the 50, you lost it, but I'm, you know, positive this name's probably gonna have a gap up in the morning and it's gonna be back above the 50. And anyone that tries to short these names after they've already made their move down, so it's just not my favorite, right? And Kospi is a good example of that, right? Like I talked about, right? You come into the 50, you get a nice shakeout and you bounce, right? I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but Bitcoin, some sort of a dead cat bounce this weekend. For 4th of July, I guess, but this thing still looks horrible to me and no reason to be even paying attention to this, right? We had a short week last week, so we do have an inside week on the NASDAQ, so I'm assuming probably going to break somewhere in the next few days, maybe, or we're just going to continue chopping around, put another inside week, whatever. But I mean, I don't mind this range until it breaks down off the 50, and then maybe I'll be a little bit more concerned, but the concern for me is definitely the stocks under the hood that have gotten destroyed and the lack of setups and the lack of traction. Maybe makes me think that this thing's going to lose the 50-day, but who knows, right? You're going to gap them the NQ, which is nice to see. And I would just like to stay him, just like I said, hold below the lows, don't lose the 50, and hold this inside day. I think this range looks really good. It almost looks like a VCP. You're building higher lows. We just need to really confirm this as a higher low and push higher and have names act better and have setup show up and then maybe get some traction on some new buys. That would definitely be what I'm looking for. You get SPY. SPY's not quite an inside week, but super tight week. You know, in this little pullback, you can look at this any way you want, but either way, you're building some sort of a range here. Not the best time for swing trading, right? When, you know, you start to get a little bit of traction, the market comes back on you, and you start to get a little bit of traction, it comes back on you. But definitely interesting, right? The dollar starting to, you know, you pull into the 20, you put an inside day, and you're starting to bounce here in the after hours. So I don't think it looks bad, right? You get a nice orderly pullback to the 20 in the inside day. It looks like maybe to me it could push higher, but we'll have to see. So who knows what that means, what that could mean for your equities and the rest of the market, right? Some ETFs I like is the equal weight of QQQ, right? Another one where you're building a range inside week. Is it going to break down or is this a nice spot? It looks fine. The MAGs, you had a nice weekly close, right? Nice, a lot of volume came in on this one. You're trying to build a higher low here. You look at the daily, you're back above the 200. You're putting in inside day. Can we push above Thursday's highs? Would be super interesting, but I don't have a whole lot here in this group, right? Nvidia looks so. It's maybe trying to build a little range here. I don't know if this is going to be a bear flag to lose at 200 or if it's going to actually build a nice range here. I will say Apple was an absolute beast. Definitely a relative strength related name that I'm continuing to keep an eye on. Amazon is trying to build a range down here. Nice little base. It's trying to build. So I'm just going to continue to watch this, but I don't see any way to buy this name right now. You get 3 inside days, but you know, a breakdown wouldn't be surprising here. I don't know. Just continue to build out this range would be somewhat interesting to me, but the MAGs just doesn't look horrible, I guess. It could be a lower high here, and I could be wrong, and it could continue to break down. But you look at Tesla, and this is absolutely disgusting. I didn't think there was really any setup for me personally on this name, and I noted last week that maybe it could have been a short towards the 200-day. It just needed to build out here and hold above the 200, and it did not do that. So definitely don't want to sit there and pay attention to that. ITB doesn't look too bad. I'm just going to go over a few ETFs that I don't think look bad. The value ETF, right, which if you look at the holdings here, you got like Apple acted really nice. Amazon looks fine. Intel's on my list. Has been holding up a little bit well. UNH has been decent. I think Visa had a big day. So that's definitely super interesting. XLV, monster. You're right on the back of I think J&J as well as LLY, right? Eli Lilly looks fine, right? I'm trying to build out a nice 4-day flag here. Super interesting. ITA though, ITA was super interesting on Friday. I think this was can't remember which one was moving. GE, I think it was, or RTX. RTX made a super big move on Friday or on Thursday, so that was super interesting. I will say I did throw Axon on my list, right? You get back above the 200, you put an inside day. Looks super interesting. The group's slowly starting to wake up a little bit, so I don't think it's too bad. Not my favorite looking setup, right? Barely any tightness at all. Rocket Lab, though, you did build a higher low here. You're trying to, at least, right? You came into the 50. Is this a short spot at the 50, or did we just get an inside day, and are we going to maybe get tight here for a few more days and push above this, right? They just acquired IRDM, which looks okay, but either way, I mean, you showed relative strength, right? The market bounced, and this thing bounced in a pretty nice way, and the market broke down, and this thing is holding pretty tight. So we'll have to just continue to monitor this name and keep an eye on it. But I mean, to me, maybe it looks like you could try to get above this 50 day. It doesn't look too bad, but you get a super tight day. So I will be watching this name for a break to the upside, breaking out above the 50 day, pretty much right above that 50 day, above Thursday's highs is where I'll watch. So we'll see, maybe a washout in the morning, unless his name's already gapping up, but not bad. Super interesting. Definitely something I want to keep an eye on. XBI still been a beast, right? Like I talked about, a lot of biotech names coming up on my list. Bug has been a beast, right? You got Snow. That looks no setup to me personally, but has been acting awesome. DDOG looks fine. Maybe you could throw this on your list as like a pullback buy. You also have CrowdStrike, has been awesome, a name I own, right? But you're back at the top of the range. Won't be adding to it up here. Shouldn't be buying it up here. In fact, I took a trim on this name on Thursday, so super nice. RBRK, right? This group looks awesome, and they continue to look awesome, but they're not viable up here for me personally. But I will continue to keep an eye on them. Obviously, you can look at Hack, looks the same. Cyber looks all right, or looks awesome compared to the market, right? Super strong. So that's just ripping higher overall. You've seen rotation in certain things. Not my favorite stuff, right? As far as like your biotech, pharma names, not my favorite to be buying. But it would be nice to see a little bit of tightness and sideways in some of these ones, and just continue to watch, right? Like I talked about, Rocket Lab, you had that Space Team. I'm just going to go through my list here. AMD held up pretty well, right? It did have a nice pullback, same thing with your SMH, but your SMH is at the 50, and AMD's barely losing the 20. It's still back inside this base. So it's, you try to break out, you shake out all the weak hands with a nice squat. I would like to see an inside day tomorrow. Maybe you could pick this one up, like a reclaim, a VWAP, if we get a gap up and like a washout and then a reclaim or something like that, or 620 setup, and we have an inside day. I think this chart would look awesome, and this could very much be a higher low. I wouldn't want to see a break of this if I did buy it. Or obviously, like my stop would be at the lows of the day, but maybe Thursday could be a line in the sand if this thing doesn't absolutely flush tomorrow. But if it does, I won't be obviously trying to buy it as it's just breaking down. But into the support cap would be super interesting. That would be a spot to watch. And then if not, then the 50 days. So this name's been holding up really well while the market's kind of been pulling back. I mean, the market's been sideways. This thing's been sideways, but the last 2 days, I mean, like, yeah, it pulled back, not a bad way. It didn't even pull back a full ATR while a lot of stuff got absolutely destroyed. So Amazon talked about trying to build some sort of a bottoming range. We'll continue to keep an eye on. I think inside day would be interesting tomorrow. Axon, get an inside day, not too much, right? No real tightness. You kind of have been up like 7 days in a row, so don't see too much for me, but a super nice weekly chart. You had a really big move up, so definitely gonna continue to watch for a sideways, for some sideways. Dell, you're trying to still build higher lows in here. I think an inside day would be nice to get back above the 10 and 20, but not my favorite day on Thursday. I mean, a lot of these not my favorite day. The weekly chart still looks fine, though. You're just building a range here. It made a big move up, so letting it continue to build out here will be super interesting. A flush in this thing down to the bottom of the range, I'll watch for an undercut and rally. If not, and it wants to build a higher low up here and get super tight down here towards the end of this little flag, I will continue to watch it, right? HIMS, you get an inside day on Thursday. The market's pulling back. This thing's putting an inside day after just a super nice trend the last month, right? You had a nice sideways setup above the 200, and you broke out of that. So we'll continue to watch this one. The weekly chart looks fine. It's in the right group, right? As far as your healthcare stuff, your pharma, your drugs. So those groups have been awesome. So it's in that right group. But another one where it's like, okay, this thing definitely was viable lower, but yeah, it doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad. Nice inside day for sure. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Intel, same thing as AMD, right? And the SMH group, right? Not breaking down as bad as some of the others, right? You can even throw, I think, MXL, right? This one did get hit pretty hard, did lose a 20, but it's back in the base. You get a breakout, you kind of squat back. You squat back in a big way, though. This is not my favorite squat. Intel as well. Like, I don't want to jump in front of this one if it's just going to continue going lower. It broke the lows of of Monday. So, you know, to see this thing continue to trade lower wouldn't be surprising to me. And I think into the 50-day will be a spot I watch. But you still have a big base, and to me, this is just like them trying to you know, people chasing this thing as it's breaking out, and it's just doing a regular squat, right? So it doesn't look horrible to me, and I don't think this thing's just done yet. I just think it needs to shake out all those weak hands, all the people that were buying it in here, and as it was breaking out. So still intact to me and watching at the 50-day. Marvell, another one, semiconductors, you're back at the bottom of the range. Would watch this spot for an undercut rally, or if we gap up tomorrow, maybe a flush back down into this pivot, and then from there see if it can bounce. But another one where it's like maybe you look at the 50-day, maybe you look at this support gap right here. Definitely a few spots to watch this one, but overall it is building a base, and it's towards the bottom range of that base, if it is doing that. So definitely one to keep an eye on. NBIS, like I talked about, at the 50-day looks awesome. If you're able to get this one, good work. You are an absolute sniper. I did get this one at the 50, and then it traded a little bit lower, and I was like, dude, I don't want to do that. And then it finally bounced, and I just didn't feel like jumping back in and just taking a bunch of paper cuts, right? Because my win rate is already a little bit lower in a market that is not allowing anything to work and gaining no traction. So want to lower the trade frequency, lower my sizing, which is one of the most important things. I should have started with that, but my size tomorrow and on new buys is going to be extremely small, 3 to 5%, if 5%, right? Because nothing's been working, right? And I tried to short BE on Thursday. I was just a little bit too early, and then it eventually started to work, right? If I pull up this chart, right? I shorted this initial loss of VWAP right here, and then it went and stopped me out, and it failed right at the pivot, and it absolutely nuked the whole rest of the day, and a little unfortunate, but I was right just a little bit early. So being early is definitely wrong. Don't want to be early and keep trying to constantly catch a bottom on a stock that just keeps making new lows in the short term, right? Wait for it to actually turn up, offer that setup, offer the tight risk, and then maybe go for it with small size if stuff hasn't been working. But Reddit, like I talked about, gets back below 200 inside day, looks okay. It's in the right group as far as software, so that looks nice. Rocket Lab just watching for a push above Thursday's highs. SanDisk watching for watching for this one to fall into the 50-day / the support gap. I think that'll be an interesting spot. We'll have to see. SpaceX, I don't know if I talked about this one. It's trying to build higher lows here, right? I hated the gap down. I hated the day it had on Wednesday, but it put an inside day. It showed some sort of relative strength, and it built a higher low. So a push above Friday's or Thursday's high would be interesting. But I don't know. I think maybe as a short-term trade into this gap, and then this is where I would look to short it. But I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of price history on this one, so not too much to do. But it did have a nice inside day and showed some sort of relative strength. So definitely something I want to keep an eye on. Zeta, back burner setups here. I'll go through really quick. There's not a bunch. Zeta, you get above the 200 day, you put an inside day, not bad. IBM, inside day, not bad. And then HIMS is already on the list, so it is what it is. But that's going to be everything for me. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have a whole lot for you. There's not really that much out there that really screams at me in any way, right? This is one of the worst it's been. So we'll see what can happen tomorrow, but definitely going to be patient. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.